Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY. You can find me on my website, tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and various other places with the same handle.
And my name is Jacob. I have a much neglected website at foodafan.com, and I'm slightly more active on Instagram as foodafan.
And Threads.
And Threads, true.
Hello, my name is Khuê. You can find me on Instagram at MidICat, and Happy New Year to everyone.
And I'm Alesa, Inky Rocks on the social media things.
And I don't know what episode this is, but it's an episode. It's our annual yearly New Year's episode. And I don't know if this is public information, but potentially our last with all four of us in this room. Unless you do Zoom, yeah. But, who wants that? Like, you'd still be in, the previous year. So, Alesa, you're going back to the United States.
Yeah, moving into the DC area around June of this year.
Yeah. But still, we have this beautiful day. We are once again blessed with beautiful weather, as is tradition.
What year is this?
This is 2024, I believe.
I am tired, but what year is this? You said last year, I thought you said it was our third time doing it on the first.
I think this is our fourth.
So it's our fourth time. That's pretty wild. So your podcast is...
Well, we started 2020, right? And then we did 21, 22, 23, 24. So this is the fourth year in review. And I guess we'll start with I don't know if it's an easy or hard question, but I think obviously everybody probably noticed that our recording schedule got a lot more dispersed, let's say. Yeah. So, let's go around the table. I think this year was probably the busiest year ever for all of us. And that's why even though we wanted to move to a monthly schedule, at the end of the day, that wasn't super feasible for any of us. So we kind of moved to this irregular schedule. But how has that been for you? Does it feel like we're podcasting a lot less? I mean, we're still very busy, right?
Who are you addressing the question to? All of us?
Yeah, all of you. Let's go around in a circle. Maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, for me it's been a particularly busy year, so this has worked well for me. To be honest, I kind of missed the podcast. I don't think there's been that much material to discuss, but I kind of miss just having the discussion about everyday life in Japan and some events, and so I do miss that. I don't miss endless hours of editing, but I would like to do a bit more frequent podcasts than we do now. And
I think that's a good point, because for the past couple of years, especially during the pandemic years, it's been a lot of, discovery, new stuff. We were on Yahoo Auctions, finding old stuff, new releases. Everything was still pretty exciting, especially since Sailor was just, they had the, on and off retailer releases. Now it's kind of morphed into this, bi-weekly release from Sailor, which then isn't very interesting to cover, nor is it very new. So I think the product release schedule of the brands has also evolved.
Yeah, and I think in the absence of real substantial product news, I think there was this vacuum that got filled by drama and rumors, and I was really tired of talking about all the drama in the pen world. So that's one reason I'm happy to be sort of on the sidelines and not talk about every hot topic in the pen world.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely been a lull in what even we could cover. So we'll probably talk a little bit about that more in terms of the highlights and lowlights of the year. But I do think that looking back on the entire year, the release schedule of the major brands and even the minor brands, right, have been a little bit stale. It's not, in my opinion, it's probably not been the best year in Japanese fountain pen world. So for me, that's kind of my thoughts around it. We had an okay year. We had some new stuff, but nothing really category defining. Nothing really too, world breaking. Maruzen, usually we would cover the new Maruzen stuff when the postcard arrives, but this year or next year they're releasing another red.
Let's save that for the biggest disappointment.
Okay. so yeah, I think that's pretty much my reflection. On the other hand, I think we'll talk about that a little bit more, but maybe some of the best stuff has come out of non-fountain pen products, particularly one chubby short.
Yeah, I mean, I think we discussed that one to death already, but I think both Khuê and I are big fans of the Uniball 1P. But I think if I'm to summarize, the year in like two trends, it's inflation and wooden pens. I think those, more than anything, those have been sort of the two big trends.
And currency rate.
Yeah, this is sort of related to the first point, but yeah.
All right, Khuê, what's your thoughts, general thoughts about the year, about 2023? Are you still as excited about the Japanese scene as maybe the earlier years?
No, I would say there's still I will lie to myself to say that nothing interests me anymore, because there's still new ink, new stationery, stickers, paper, journal going out. But maybe we had this during the pandemic, as it was cross border, and we were kind of showing off what's going on here and sharing with the international friends and community. Maybe the research was a bit more even more concentrate on the Japanese scene. And now that borders are reopened and you can access most of the brand online, like a lot of brands who were only accessible in shop open their online shop, it get more easy how to get online and find new inks and stuff like that. So maybe our role is a little bit less intense.
That's a good point. I think, not to toot our own horns too much, but I'll toot it a little bit. I think we did play a pretty big role in bringing a lot of hidden information from Japan to the English-speaking audience. But not only that, I think we brought a lot of information from outside to the Japanese vendors. So remember in 2020, we asked Kobayashi Bunkan about why they don't sell overseas, and it's too much of a pain, we need to do all these things. And I believe, Jacob, you're the one that broke the news, basically, that they're going to start accepting overseas orders now, with a separate page.
Yes, so you can order now from overseas from their website, their online store. Yeah, which it took a while for them. They were one of the last holdouts.
And this is coming from a store who actually refused to sell even online just 3 years ago, right? So I know, Alesa, with your interactions with a lot of the Japanese vendors, they've kind of started to change their minds about selling to non-Japanese people even, right? And it's a big shift in the behavior of Japanese vendors. We had obviously record numbers of Japanese vendors go out to San Francisco as well. So maybe rather than the more overt changes in the scene, we have more subtle changes in retailer behavior as well as consumer behavior.
But I think that has a lot to do with the domestic manufacturers being forced to raise prices. And we talked before about how Sailor recognized that the price increases has had a dampening effect on domestic sales, right? So they're probably selling less domestically now. At the same time, as you said, Japan has opened up after the pandemic. More and more people are coming here. People from the US in particular are enjoying a very favorable exchange rate. They want to buy Japanese stationery. I mean, if you don't target those customers, I mean, that's such a lost opportunity.
Yeah,
right?
and we'll talk about price increases because there's some ridiculous ones coming.
Yes.
Alesa, what's your year in review?
I agree with both you guys. With Jacob on the price increase is dampening the enthusiasm from Japanese fountain pen users. I'm still in a group of, I don't know, about 15 people that were on my volunteer team when I worked for TIPS. And we all just kind of stayed together as a pen club right now online. And man, the wailing and the whining about the price increases. I mean, they're posting online like the price sheets and comparing to last year and stuff like that. So it's definitely affecting, at least from what I see, because the volunteers are going to be like more pen people, right? And there's just, I'd say about half of the line discussion is whining about the prices, you know. And then, like you said, with the weakening of the dollar, now, the yen, weakening of the yen, people, you know, are finding maybe Japanese pens a little more affordable than they were before. So definitely, I think Japanese companies are are really not doing it right if they don't open up and start selling overseas. And I'm seeing that just running around. People are like, hey, you went to San Francisco last year, right? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, you know, so what's it like? How much does it cost? And I've talked plane tickets to people and whether or not, as a matter of fact, it was even Kobayashi that they were trying to maybe come to San Francisco, but the tickets were just, he couldn't justify going out there and trying to sell. So I think
He didn't think he could justify it.
he didn't think he could.
He was wrong.
But, yeah, he was. But then he turned around and he goes, but we are going to open up, you know, to like overseas sellers. So they're just being drug kicking and screaming into the, I think, more the international.
Which is pretty interesting because, I mean, this is kind of veering off pen talk, right? But then I guess the natural question is, well, why doesn't the BOJ just raise interest rates to reduce the gap? And
Well, that would kill the domestic industry.
that would, exactly. And that's because we haven't had wage increases in 40 years, right? So you'd have a cost of living crisis. So Japan is pretty much in a pickle, kind of waiting to see. They're playing chicken with the U.S. Feds. So, anyways, we'll see what happens. Let's not get on a deep dive in that topic, but yeah, totally. I think what the pen industry here is doing, at least the vendors, right? They're looking at the right places, and that overseas strategy, I think. What Sailor is doing probably merits some kind of a discussion. Maybe we can just jump right into that. Sailor, obviously, I don't know if it's obvious or not, but has been, I think, one of the player in the big three that's focused the most on the Western market. In terms of, particularly because they have Sailor USA, who I think drives a lot of the momentum in the US and Canada and Mexico. But the problem with that is that, from what I understand, there is Sailor USA that you can work with, and then there's also Sailor International Sales and Marketing Department. So there are two different groups of people with two different groups of interests. And so as a result, you have these like, let's say, overseas models that are developed by the Sailor in Japan, so Sailor International sales team. And then you have the overseas or the US exclusive stuff that's developed by Sailor USA. And as a result, you have this kind of oversaturation in the market of, like, you know, Sailor of the Week, right? Because obviously then Sailor USA is carrying both. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on about, you know, how manufacturers are targeting or moving to I guess value more that overseas market. Jacob, you have any thoughts on this? Doesn't have to be Sailor.
Well, I think it's most applicable to Sailor because Pilot has always had a worldwide presence, and they've always been doing well. They're selling their G2s in, you know, tons of them by the truckload, right? Sailor, I don't know. I feel like they are just throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks, right? We know that they have made a very heavy investment in, you know, new manufacturing capabilities, and they have used their new manufacturing capabilities, as you said, to make all kinds of new models and try to see what works. You know, model for domestic retailers, standard model for domestic markets, models for the overseas markets. And yet the sales are down like 10%, I think, year over year, and they're on track to make one of the biggest, you know, losses in their history. So they've tried various things; it doesn't seem to work. one thing that I think is different about Sailor than the other ones is that they are more cyclical than the others. Like, I think shortly after the pandemic or during the pandemic, when people had the COVID checks and made their Dogecoins went to the moon or whatever, right, that they could invest in their KOPs or whatever. I think it's been a bit of a hangover after that. I think that has reflected in worse sales than before for Sailor. While for Pilot, I don't think their business is as cyclical because you're going to buy your Pilot juice whether your interest rate mortgage is going up or down, right? That is not a cyclical product like that. So I don't think that will change too much. I think we're going to see very shortly, because Sailor is an increasingly dire situation, I think we may see them being forced to focus on fewer products. And something we've talked to as well recently is they're going to have to be forced to do something about the fact that their flagship nib is 21K. That puts them at a unique disadvantage compared to the other manufacturers. But it's such a matter of prestige for them, I believe. So I'm curious to see how they're going to approach it. But I think they're going to have to do that pretty soon because they are over and over recognizing that the gold cost is a major headache for them.
Well, the 10% loss could be probably, gapped just by changing the gold content from 21K to 14K.
But if you go to the website, if you go to the marketing, the history, it's so much about the unique 21K nib that performs differently than all the other nibs, right? So they need to figure out a way to spin it. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think they're going to have to do something about that.
I think I agree with how they should go about it, but the Sailor Cylint has a conversation with you about fewer models, so we'll talk about that later. Khuê, how do you think the Japanese brands are going to approach 2024?
I don't know. Seriously, it's we had this talk with some stationery people, more into stickers and journals and masking tape, and I think quite parallel with the fountain pen business is sometimes in Japan. Maybe a lot of people will disagree with me, but the impression I have is Japanese make very good artifacts, and once they reach this kind of top, they will sit on this throne and think that as they reach this top, they don't need to do more. They can just stay there and be happy, quiet there. And all around in other Asian countries, they are running after, and sometimes they surpass this top. And at the moment, I can see Taiwan or Malaysia has they play very strong in the stationery world. But it won't surprise me that in the fountain pen world, some other country will reach this position, and maybe that would challenge Japan.
I'd say that's already happening with China.
Yeah, exactly.
This year has been just the Chinese pen makers have been just amazing this year. I can't keep track of it anymore, but between all the Asvin, how you pronounce it, and the Hongdian and the Moonman releases, they all look really good. I bought some.
And you are the original Chinese pen influencer.
Yeah, all the Moonman, Mahjong and stuff.
Yeah, and they make really, really good pens. In the past it was really the case that, really nice pen, except that it was cross-threading, or except that we're leaking somewhere, or except, those exceptions are fewer and fewer. They're getting really, really good, and the price point is very attractive. And it's becoming harder to justify buying something other than a Chinese pen because they're just so good. The only problem is that there's just too many of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that they don't have a distribution model.
Yeah.
Which is probably why the prices are so good. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Alesa, what's your...
What a company should do, I don't know. Where I think maybe Sailor is going, just from looking at just stationery, is that, we talk a lot about $600 to $1,000 pens and stuff, and really in reality, most people aren't good at that. That's not the majority of fountain pen users. And you see Sailor coming out with over and over these Prophet Juniors that come with both a converter and a little ink bottle. I call them introductory kits. And they seem to be quite popular, and it's a nice segue into fountain pens if you don't use them. I think that's a really good way to maybe encourage more people to use fountain pens. But whether or not that's going to be a profitable, thing for Sailor, I don't know. I really don't know. But I think they're like, I showed it to you. It was like a Pilot Lucina or something. It was like the size of a Prera. It was a yellow pen. I'd never had a yellow pen, and I got it. And I absolutely love it, and I paid like $30 for it. And you can't get them. I got it at some, the little store underneath the train tracks. And I'm just really sad that Pilot isn't doing more of those. It's always just the Prera, and I'd like to see them to make $50 or less pens, because they do a really good job. And it's almost incomparable how good they are. The fact that a Pilot Varsity costs, what, $3, $2? And it still writes really well, and people actually refill them. And I feel like maybe we're missing out a little bit on that.
Yeah, but I think all the Japanese pen makers now actually are starting to make good introductory pens. That was the only prediction I got, 50%, right? All the other predictions were way off. We'll get to that later, I guess. But Platinum has refreshed the Curidash. They have done some interesting stuff with Procyon. Pilot has done that. Lightive Explorer. Sailor, as you said.
Lightive is Pilot, right?
Yeah, but Pilot has done that Lightive Explorer, and I think there was something else they did. I can't remember. And then Sailor, they've done interesting things with the Hokuro, and then this Prophet Junior that now actually previously they look kind of boring, now they look very appealing with that Yurameku kit, right? I think for many of them, for all of those pen makers, especially Sailor, the step up is too big.
Oh, yeah, from that introductory one to the, exactly.
Yes,
yeah,
you have that,
yeah.
and then
the
you have,
$100 pen.
Right.
Yeah.
So previously you had the Custom 74, 3776, and
right.
Profits, right? You still have some of that they're more expensive. They all look kind of boring until you get 30,000-40,000 yen, right?
Yeah.
So there's this gap between this fun introductory pen and actually appealing high-end golden pen.
Well, maybe that's why the capless is so successful.
It's true. It is kind of a bridge type, and it's always so innovative. I mean, the colors, every time he posts a pen, it's like everybody's all crazy about it, but they seem to be the most affordable, and I always want to get one even though I don't like a capless.
And I think to your point about the lower end, I think Sailor actually, they did these iridescent Fude Prophet Juniors with a little ink bottle, and those were sold out everywhere, even in places that usually have stock, let's say, the places that don't sell that much. They were all sold out as well. So yeah, maybe you're onto something here.
And the collaboration with Mizutama.
Yeah.
I think also while the yen is weak, they have to contend with the fact that more and more domestic sales even are influenced by non-Japanese people. And I think a lot of companies have a hard time kind of reconciling the fact that, non-Japanese people can come to Japan and buy stuff in Japan as well. So how do you segment the people that are actually in the store, the people that are buying from home, and then the domestic market, right? So yeah, that's pretty interesting. All right, let's move on to our next topic. I'm talking as if we have a list of topics, right? But I want to talk a little bit about the year-end capless, the whiskey without the H. I believe all of us have had the experience of going in the store and purchasing one now, right? Yeah. What do you think, Jacob?
Well, leaving the spelling aside, I think this is one of the nicest one. I mean, it's up there, I think, with Wish, which is probably many people's favorite, right? And I love that matte finish and that light brown gradient. It is Going back to discussions about price, it is significantly more pricey than previous models. I guess we'll talk about Pilot's overall price increases later. But I think it's a home run. I just wish... there's always so much confusion when this model comes out, because no one can really... the definition of what stores that sell them is kind of weird. They need to have like Pilot sales staff, which is not very helpful for consumer.
Yeah, because you don't know which ones are from Pilot.
We wear hats, Pilots.
Yeah. So, and the marketing is all but absent, right? So there's also a lot of confusion about the model, but the pen itself is a home run.
You mean you don't like it when they just announce something on Twitter? Sorry, X?
Did they even do that this time?
Probably. I don't know. Alesa, what do you think about the...
Well, it hits all the things that people like, the kind of gradient color, the ombre, and then it's matte, which is different, and it's brown. The brown pens are brown and green pens are kind of rare. So, I mean, yeah, that couldn't help it. And then the misspelling just made it better, so.
Great.
So yes, it's for me it was when Jacob posted the first stories from the magazine, I was like, okay, I'm done. I was like, no more pen until the end of the year. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. And I knew that one of my pen pal, Julie, will jump in with me. So it was 10 on 10, plus a bottle of ink, as always, in this set. But it's quite always a little bit of secret thing, that you can find in store, but not all of them. And as Jacob said, you never really know how many there is on the market and stuff like that.
I went to purchase this pen from Itoya, who is basically the last place they have it in stock. And they said, oh, sorry, we're not selling the pen at the moment anymore. We're recalling all of the remaining stock. And I said, why? And she says, well, if you live in Japan and you're willing to wait, we can send it to you once we can sell it again, because we have a spelling mistake on the packaging. And I said, no. I want the one with the spelling mistake. Like, the spelling mistake is what makes it great. I mean, the pen is beautiful, but, now you have an Easter egg, which is kind of fun. So
I made some research about the name, because I was like, because we asked in the shop with Jacob, we asked at Maruzen, where is this whiskey coming from? And the staff told us, oh, it's from the German spelling. And we're like, okay. And in my head, I was like, strange. I learned German, but I have maybe I didn't learn whiskey in school, as I was still a kid. So I was like, and I checked online when I came back. So there's a H in German, just to make it clear. And I found that some Japanese brand write it without the H.
Yeah, there's one specific brand, an Austrian brand that is imported to Japan.
Exactly, and so there's one brand who write it without the H.
And that's the brand that Pilot likes.
Maybe the CEO of Pilot drink only that one, maybe.
Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty funny, but I agree it's a beautiful pen.
What I don't understand is that this pen is mostly sold out already, right? So if they're doing recall, how many boxes can they even recall? And are you gonna make another batch now, or?
No, they're gonna send replacement packaging.
Yeah, I get that, but so you need to go there and like say, I bought this one before, and can you please give me a new?
You could probably do that. And they will probably send you a new packaging.
Because otherwise, my question is, do they even have enough? I mean, how many boxes do they still have in stock in Itoya that it can send back?
I'm not sure, but the last time I went, they still had some inventory, so that was like maybe a week or two ago.
But in that case, maybe the one with correct spelling will be even more rare, because it's all but sold out now, right? So maybe they're like 5 boxes, they send back the Pilot, get a correct label.
It's true. But that one's not as fun. But I think what's interesting is that the year started with also another initially what I thought was a lackluster capless model, but it's actually pretty banging. It's the Disney 100th anniversary capless, and it has the Steamboat Willie, like the classic Steamboat Willie, printed on the barrel. I think it was an Itoya exclusive. And they had the Disney 100th anniversary small ink bottles with it. And originally I wasn't so sold on the actual pen itself because it's just screen printed. But then when I saw the presentation box, my mind completely changed because it had this you basically fold it up and it has this pop out art of Steamboat Willie. And yeah, that one was I think pretty nice. And then it's nice they ended the year with another nice capless.
Oh, it is
And-
cute.
Yeah.
It's really cute.
And Itoya released their own anniversary capless, the old gold stripe.
Yes.
Last month, right?
Yeah, which is the kind of a recoloring of the silver one.
Yes.
So staying on this pilot topic, pilot price increases, guys. I mean,
From today.
30 to 60%, eh?
Yeah, I looked at it. I didn't see 60%, but I saw that the Pilot Custom 845 is going up like 38%. That was the highest I saw.
It's up there. And also the custom Urushi, I think, is
Oh, really?
Oh,
Okay.
seriously?
because I think it's going to be 150,000 now.
Holy smokes. Wow. That is a big price increase.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And Pilot had been one of the last holdouts to have significant price increases, but even Pilot, right? Like they threw in the towel and they said we have to price increase.
Yeah. But you've seen signs of that in the past because I mean, we talked about, I mean, even last year we talked about that bamboo forest capless, which already was significantly more expensive than the previous model, right? So the standard models were mostly unchanged, but when they did a special edition for Marzen or this one or whatever, that's where you saw like a sign of things to come.
So let me see if I can find the custom Urushi's price.
I think they mentioned also that Namiki is excluded. I'm not sure if that means they're going to have a separate announcement for Namiki later.
I think that might be the case, but also it depends on whether they give salary increases to Kokokai, right? Because if they don't, then a lot of the increase in price is just materials, which is not that much.
That raises an interesting question. So, and the custom 845, the price increase for the custom 845 is quite a bit higher than the 823, right? And the two differences are the type of gold, 18 karat versus 14 karat, and the other difference is that one has Urushi, right? So, do we see, is that delta caused by the additional cost that Urushi is getting more expensive, or is it caused by the difference between 14 and 18K?
I think it very well might be the gold. I'm looking at the price increases right now, and it looks like we're looking at 90,000 yen to 120,000 yen. Yeah, 121,000 yen from 96,000 yen. So pretty significant. I actually think it's probably the gold prices. I don't know if they're using Japanese Urushi or Chinese Urushi.
So then it would be interesting to see if they do Namiki as well, which they kind of have to. Right now, the difference between the Urushi 20 and Urushi 50, which is sometimes called, Emperor Namiki Real, is actually pretty small. It's like 140 versus 160,000 yen or something like that, right? But the differences in nib size and thus the gold content is quite significant, right? So if they are to increase the price of Namikis, I think we'll see the difference between the 20 and 50 increase dramatically.
Yeah. And the Elite 95S is going from 11,000 to 17,000.
That's curious because that's like tiny little nib.
It's a small pen. So probably they were losing money on this model. Yeah, it's quite a lot. I don't think I've heard about how it will impact the overseas market yet, though. So it's possible that Pilot, like Europe, Pilot USA, maintains their price just because of the.
It's already been shitty prices.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Europe in particular, they're known for having like very high prices.
So, and because of the favorable exchange rate right now, I think Pilot feels comfortable. But we'll see, because the yen will probably strengthen in the next year. Just, I mean, given what Chair Powell said.
Yeah, it's more in his hands than in Bank of Japan's hands.
Yeah, Ueda-san. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and I think we'll probably see in 2024 a continuing rising in prices. Personally, obviously I have some stake involved. I also hope that nib grinding and like repair work, nib services, will also see an increase in prices. We already see that with Nagahara. So Nagahara has increased about a 10% increase in his prices. And personally, I think that the repair services have basically had stagnant prices for 10 years, right, at least.
But that's actually also part of Pilot's announcement. This is not a nib grind, of course, but Pilot offers repairs at their headquarters, right? And they published an announcement just a few days ago, I think, when they increased the prices for various repair services.
Yeah, I think it has to happen. Otherwise, you're going to not have... In a way, those price increases, although it sucks for the consumer, it also helps these people, keep a job, right? Like if you're a repair person and you don't get paid enough, then you're just going to look for another job. I mean, at some point it becomes whether I can put food on the table. So I think overall the market will have to bear higher prices in general. The question is whether wages will keep up, and we'll see. In Japan, it's challenging, but the inflation that you talked about mostly is caused by externalities. So we'll see if the externalities can force an internal movement in the economy to increase wages, but that's a big question mark.
So one thing interesting about the price increase is that the second-hand prices seem to be a lagging indicator. Right? Like, it's like if you go and buy a Bungo Box Sailor now and then try to sell it on Mercari, then of course you're going to try to sell it for a higher price than a year ago. But if you have some Pilot Custom 74 that you bought like 10 years ago and you're trying to sell it now, those prices seems to have been mostly unchanged. Yeah. Right? So this may be a good time to go and hoard some second-hand tents on Mercari.
Well, on last word about pricing, just I've been having some conversations with pricing with people who actually decide the prices, and a big concern is that even though a lot of even parts are not made in Japan, right? Like some parts might be made elsewhere, and if you're doing international trade, you're likely paying in US dollars. Or at least the chance that you're paying in yen is very, very low, especially these 2 years because nobody wants to take yen. And so there has been an inflation on from vendors themselves, right? Just suppliers. The prices just have increased for manufacturers. And on the question of whether then to raise prices to reflect that, a lot of the concerns that I hear is that, yes, it will probably be better business and healthier business. But if we do, it won't impact the overseas market as much, but then Japanese people will no longer be able to afford to buy those products. And so there's a lot of hesitation on that front as well.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to this whole question about whether we're going to see the Japanese pen makers doing more interesting like new models or refreshes of models with steel nibs, because in the past, steel nibs have always you don't really go to Marden and buy like a gift pen with a steel nib. The gold is the gold standard. Right?
Even when I was with Ben Walsh last year, going around all the shops, he'd show his pens, and then the first question would be, "This is cool. Does it come in a gold nib?"
Right.
But now, just cursorily on Twitter, people seem to be more okay with steel nibs. You went to the Wagner event, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago?
2 days ago,
Yeah. What was the vibe like there? I mean,
Well, it was usually just the OIG selling the very old pens, so it wasn't really a reflection of that. But the second-hand prices were still amazingly good. So again, it's a lagging indicator. Lichtop was there, and I think we talked about that maybe before. But their latest model is quite expensive, and it's a sale. And I talked to Morrison and about his upcoming models for next year. He has various platinum models in the works, and he said that I can't remember his exact wording, but basically, like, platinum is taking advantage of the fact that Sailor is, pricing themselves out of the market, right? Because we have seen a lot more interesting store exclusives and event exclusive platinum models this year, right? We have, the Shishikura pen, you have some Hachimondia, you had Kobayashi, you had Wagner, and so on, right? So it seems as if platinum is becoming more and more interesting alternative to Sailor if you want to make like a store exclusive.
which is, I think, our prediction from last year. I believe that is what we said.
That may have been okay. In that case, we did well.
All right, so let's move on to some of the year topics. So let's start with maybe the biggest news of the year, biggest release of the year. What do you think was, Lisa? You want to start us off? Biggest release of the year?
I don't know if it's the biggest release, but I thought it was the most market savvy release was Shishikura's latest pen. It hit everything.
We haven't done the podcast bi-weekly for a while, so you got to remind us which one that is.
What's it called? It's a 377. I have 1,000,03776.
The platinum
Oka?
Sakura.
Is it called Sakura or is it called Oka?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
It's
Oka?
called
Oh,
Oka.
yeah, it is okay. Yeah, you're right. But it's a 3776, so it doesn't dry out. And the price of 3776 still haven't completely.
30,000 was?
Yes, around that 33, if I'm not wrong.
33,000.
Which put it about, for me, in dollars, about 200 or something, which is a screamingly good deal, because it has kind of a silkscreen urushi thing on it with a sakura, and then it was pink, and then it had a solid section that had glitter in it, but not a lot, because they kind of got away from that. It has a unique nib. The converter was decorated. I mean, there was nothing. She didn't overlook anything. She hit every point that someone wants to make it a unique pen. And for the price, I thought it was just such a great deal and such a pen that kind of encompasses a lot of what a lot of people want in a pen. So yeah, can't even remember the name, and it's hands down the best pen for me in this past year.
It's still half price of a Sailor Pro Gear at Maruzen, one of the limited edition. When you compare the gradation from the previous one she made, I think they raised 10,000 yen every year.
Yeah, and I think that's probably might be one of the reasons why she might have gotten away from Sailor. I'm just, guessing here. But I mean, you can take that pen, you just throw it in a purse somewhere and you forget about it for a couple of months. It doesn't matter. Still, you pull it out, it looks beautiful, and it writes. So, yeah, that's the best pen. Fight me on it.
All right, Khuê?
I will. I agree with Alicia, and then I really enjoy the Kakari one.
Thank you.
So it has been one of my I think it's always, yes, since this summer it was always ink in my purse. So I would say, compared to what I usually show and more glittery feminine pen, this one was a very a big surprise. So
Thank you.
omedetou.
Thank you.
So are you going to make a glittery pen? Are you going to make a pen for us?
I have no comment on that right now.
Oh,
That's how you know you hit,
oh,
when it says
man.
no comment, that means that you're asking the
Hi,
right
I'm
question.
going to wait in line.
We can talk about...
We can. I think we have to save this answer and see in 1 year.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We can talk a little bit about future developments. I can talk about some stuff later. Yeah. Jacob?
I have to agree with Khuê about the Kakari. I think you did a fantastic job, and it's truly a new pen on the market. You know, the filling system, the nib. You didn't just go with standard components. You really obsessed over details and made something quite unique. To be honest, I'm sure you think the filling system is the selling point. I don't. I would be equally happy with this if it was a piston filler. For me, it's the nib, it's the feed, it is the section, you know, the weight balance. Just how great of a writer this is. So, congratulations on that.
Yeah, you're still in my thunder because I do agree with that. That I always like cool new filling systems, like the magnetic things. I go out and buy them and play with the magnets and stuff like that. And I always, in the end, unscrew the section, take out my syringe, and that's how I fill the pen. And I will probably eventually fill your pen like that. I'll just unscrew the section, which you're not supposed to do, and probably fill it. Yeah. But you're not supposed to do, but I will do it just because I'm a lazy person, and the syringe is the best filling system in my opinion.
Well, technically, that is a syringe.
Yeah, but I mean, the blunt tip syringe is how I fill almost all my pens, unless it's a piston, and I don't like pistons that much. So I will probably end up using the pen that way, but I would still use the pen. So that you were saying that it's a nice thing, but that wasn't the reason why.
Well, I think it's interesting because the filling mechanism is what draws people to buy the pen, and then they stay for the nib. So we have received that feedback quite a lot.
One more pen that I would mention, I'm not sure if it was released this year or if I just got hold of it this year, but Montblanc's curved calligraphy nib, which I think this is also one of my absolute favorite nibs now. And it's such an interesting nib because it's not, I thought it would be like a Naginata style nib, but I don't think I think the way to describe it is that it is to an architect what a stub is to an italic. In other words, it's a more rounded version of an architect. It's more forgiving. You don't get quite the same amount of line variation, but you get some line variation, and it's a very forgiving nib. And I've had so much fun using the curved calligraphy Montblanc nib.
Yeah, that's a good one, and it doesn't really have that much of a sweet spot, I think. Like, you can kind of just casually even write with it, right? So you don't have to be a master calligrapher. For me, other than my own pen, to be honest, this year has been pretty slow in pen acquisitions for myself. I've kind of stopped buying pens and started to kind of shift into different hobbies, like
Gundam.
Yeah, building Gunpla, which is in some time, but it's also a good inspiration for me. The best release of this year, I might have recency bias because I just bought this 2 days ago, but I have this, what is this brand called? Color Chart. So this is Itoya's in-house brand, right? So they have this pen case. It's 10 pen case. It's this almost fully leather case, and you just zip it all around and you open it, and it's got 10 slots in it. It's got a nice cushion. I think this is urethane with ultra suede from Toray, and it's just got this nice casual luxury feel to it. And I'm like shaking the pen I'm shaking it in the box, in the pen case right now, right? There's a little bit of movement, but it's because of the padding, it doesn't damage the pens. And this ultra suede, honestly, it's man-made suede, but it just feels so good. It's more like a microfiber.
Oh yeah.
And I think the way that they designed this case, it's very simple, but very elegant. And I think you can even use it. I mean, I can use it in the future just at pen shows as well, just to display products, even in the case. So for me, I really, really liked this release, and I do believe it is new. So hats off to them. I would love to make something like this as well. But yeah, I think this is excellent.
So this means next year we'll see a Cusado pen case. What love means will do.
Yeah, that's true. With glitter pens on the inside.
What about the worst or most disappointing release?
I have one here.
Go ahead.
Also, last year we talked about, we kind of mentioned it at the beginning, but last year we talked about the upcoming Mother's and Spring Pen Show, and we couldn't understand why they would do a red custom Urushi when it was already a standard red custom Urushi.
There's two.
Right. And it turns out that the one that they made was a little bit sort of darker, more brownish. It wasn't exactly the same. It's okay, let's hope they do something really different, like some purple or teal or whatever this year. Right. Turns out that this time they're aiming for something even closer to the standard red custom.
You feel the gap, right?
Exactly, because if you look at the article in Shumen Bungabaku, they even mention, unlike last year's, this one is brighter and more saturated, more similar to the standard model. So why bother then? Come on, you had this opportunity to make a really unique custom Urushi.
I agree that was a very, very disappointing release. Yeah, honestly, I think that might take it. Okay, you got a even more disappointing one? Something about the 2024 New Year's cover?
Yeah. Let's say so. Travelers usually do a lottery every January when you buy in store or online, and you can, if you reach a certain amount, you get a ticket to get in a lottery. And they always have like this very like people get crazy about this, like usually sign of the year print, like golden,
the Chinese zodiac.
Yeah, it's Chinese zodiac gold foil on the cover. So they got the tiger one, the rabbit one, and sometimes it was linked to their anniversary, so the 7 Seas or the 9 Clouds series. So I think there is maybe 3 or 4 cover per shop. So whenever someone won one of the lottery cover, it's over either on Mercari as like thousands of dollars resell, or some people are really like, how to say, hang on it because it's very precious. There's maybe like 10 of them or 12 of them on the market. And this year, so starting today, is the dragon year in the Chinese zodiac in Japan. For people who celebrate the Lunar New Year, will be later, of course. So we are all hoping for dragon.
Because dragons are cool, right?
Dragon was really cool, right?
Yeah.
And they release a town. I'm really sorry for the one who liked the cover, but in my position, I'm really, really upset. Because they released the town series, who is the one they did for the anniversary, who looks exactly like the drawing they made for the drawing sheet or the plastic folder. It's just a copy-paste. And I'm like, come on, you have the dragon. What happened? What happened for the design team? Travelers, answer me, please. So yeah, it's a little bit disappointing.
Well, I'm glad you said it, not me, because I'm not allowed to say that. But disclosure, I work with TRC. But I think this release is strange because when you commit to a zodiac theme, you have to do all of them. You can't just do 3 out of 12 and then decide you're going to do something else, right?
It's
so
strange, yeah.
I won't say anything about this, but that's my general comment about zodiac themed products.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe that one.
Alesa, you have a disappointing product of the year?
I don't even know if it's disappointing. It's just something I had noticed is Hobonichi this year on their different planners released hardcovers. It used to be you'd get kind of a soft cover and then you buy the other cover to go with it. But they had these hardcovers that are just really beautiful.
The home series, right?
Yeah, and so I got the whole set, for that one. And last week it was with Kat, right? We went back through the Tobichi, and so they've had these sample ones out since September or August when they released them, And I was looking at the sample and all the hardback ones, and I don't know if this is because it's only less than a year, but or maybe because it's being handled a lot. But the hardback ones were starting to like bend out, and they looked, maybe if you put them on a bookshelf, they'll keep it straight. But they were all bending out, and I'm thinking, is that what I'm looking forward to when I start using my hardbacks? That's just something I want to watch out for. Yeah. That's all.
Next one. What's a product basically product that you think has flown under the radar? And maybe I'll start here with the Nakabayashi Yusari paper. The Nakabayashi Yusari paper, I think, is very good. It's thicker than Tomoe River, but it handles ink quite well. I think it could be a good contender for the Tomoe River 68 GSM replacement.
It's very, very slick, though. Personally, I think it's a bit too slick for my case, but for my taste. But I remember they announced for the first time TIPS 2022, and I think we may have mentioned it in passing. But you're right that you didn't start seeing products on the shelves, especially not outside Japan, until this year. It is very ink friendly. I agree. But you have to like that very sort of writing on glass surface kind of.
I think the difference between that and the now discontinued Cosmere Light is that it doesn't make your line spread, right? It keeps the integrity of the line width while also being very color friendly. I think it probably doesn't dry as fast as other papers, but if you were using Tomoe River, you probably didn't really care too much about dry time anyway. Obviously, it is different. It's definitely a different paper, but I think it's a good paper. It's not going to hit every box, but it's a good paper, and I think not enough people are talking about that paper yet. Yeah. So, do you have a under the radar?
An under the radar product. I need some time to think about that, so I'll pass the baton.
While you're thinking about that, I bought a notebook with you, sorry, so I'll bring it up for the meet afterwards, and we can discuss it then. As far as, it's just not under the radar. It's just probably what we were talking about earlier, Khuê, about there's just so many releases of inks and so many releases of this and that. We kind of got like fried over here with just so much choice. And I think like when you have so much choice, you kind of like devalue everything a little bit. And because of that, because it was a rough year this past year for me personally, and I found that going back to just using basics like Pilot Blue Black ink and Ito Shizuku inks and just my straight up, custom 74, I have just been really getting into that. It's just very comforting and very predictable, and I kind of almost went back in this retro pre-glitter ink, pre-chromo shading ink phase. And that's just something I just really brought me back to why I like fountain pens. And I'm wondering if we need to explore that a little bit, just kind of get back to basics a little bit. Not to denigrate any new stuff, but sometimes the reason I use a fountain pen isn't to buy something new. So
yeah, that's fair.
We were talking exactly about the same yesterday with Akane and Suwai. Like I rediscovered all my Ito Shizuku ink, and I found some colors that I didn't have on Mercari, like all the orange, bright red one, and I ordered some of them on secondhand just to play with them. And they're so, stable, basic, and
it's comfort food or something.
Exactly. Yeah, with all the glitters, because we were planning the glitter will die, right? Like last year, we said that we did the last year of glitters, and they're still around. And as long as I love glitters for like playing with calligraphy or glass pen, it's such P in the A to clean my pen with the glitters, and they always stuck. It's impossible to get out of them. So at some point, it's just like glitter for glass pen, and then normal, basic ink for the other fountain pens.
Thank you for keeping our podcast PG.
I think I will continue on the same theme. I'm probably the least qualified person to talk about ink here because I don't buy that much of it. But the way I see it, most of the inks you see, the new inks you see nowadays, is like expensive, dirty water in perfume bottles with
That's a shot at a certain Canadian brand.
Oh, get off my lawn! Get off my lawn!
Don't say too much. I'm an ambassador.
not just them, no, but like fountain pen, like compatibility is almost like an afterthought, right? One brand that I think is going the other direction and which really appeals to me is Kuretake. Kuretake makes ink in small bottles. They are like they perform very well in fountain pens. They're wet. They're easy to clean. The bottles are cheap. Like they tick all the boxes for me. But I don't see that much about Kuretake.
Okay.
They made some glitters one.
Oh no, but no. At least they sell in separate bottles.
Yes,
You
yes.
can keep your glitter over here. I'll keep my ink over here.
Were there any surprise purchases? So it doesn't have to be under the radar or anything, but just something you didn't expect to buy, and then you got it, and you actually really liked it.
Yeah.
For me, I haven't used it that much yet, but I did buy a Lauritz brush pen with the stealth thread. I personally have some complaints about the threading because it's reverse threaded, so sometimes I unscrew the barrel instead of the cap. But otherwise, I think it's a very solid pen. I like the design. I've been wanting a Lauritz for quite a while, but their gold nibs are quite expensive. I wasn't sure if I wanted that brush pen, because then how do you replace the brush, right? But for me, I've kind of been wanting to get more into like brush calligraphy, like Chinese calligraphy, Japanese calligraphy, and I've put that skill to good use these days, writing different cards. But yeah, I definitely didn't expect to buy that this year, but it was the right color, the right price, and I bought it and I quite like it. I think it's a nice pen.
I rediscover a brand that I saw sometimes in at Elite or Star Stationery paper, like some stationery in Japan, and we discussed about it with Alicia and Ayako from Kutsin from Japan. Is the Neue Gray brand. We met them in San Francisco at the pen show, and I got some of their paper, and I was quite surprised by how good they react with fountain pen. Even the paper is like not white, like one of the brands Neue Gray, so a little bit like grayish. All the chromo shading color, like I tried with the Lichtop Mizuho light blue one. You see all the chromo shading on it, and they have another brand about like new washi paper, and I was really surprised how good they are for fountain pen. And I don't think that well known even in Japan, so it was a good surprise.
Jacob?
So it was more than a year ago now, but I bought this Pilot Super 200 with a signature nib, which you probably remember. Like the pen was in pretty terrible condition, which I tried to get it to work. It was still leaking. It was horrible. I so wanted to use that nib, but the pen was just in such a terrible condition. But what I found this year was that it fits perfectly in some pens that take like number 5 size Jowo nibs, right? So I have this one beautiful Tag Stationery Fumisome pen. Which came with an okay but kind of boring like Jowo steel number 5 size nib, and these Pilot Super 200, Super 250 size nibs, they just fit perfectly. And ever since I discovered that, I've been hoarding this Pilot Super 200 nibs. So I have a signature, I have a script, I have a manifold, I have a soft, and most recently now, I found a coarse
Nice.
nib.
Wow.
And I brought this 2 days ago to the Wagner's year-end event, and I showed this to
the Oyajis.
Mr. Pilot, and he couldn't believe his eyes that this actually worked, and he wanted to buy that from me.
You wanted to buy it from you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
Alesa, you got anything
For me, I've kind of this year kind of gotten into pen trays. I think it was a little bit over a year ago. We went to the Osaka Pen Show, and I got that pen tray from the leather one.
Shinari.
Yeah, Shinari. And I got it mainly for glass pens, so I could just throw my glass pens on there without, them rolling off the table. But then I ended up, when I wasn't using my glass pen, just kind of throwing my other pens on there. And then I went to San Francisco and got a pen tray from this company that makes guitars for the Grateful Dead. And it's sort of like their leftover wood or whatever. And then we went to Bunga Box a couple weeks ago, was it? And they had a special from Toyooka where they had their own velvet in there. And now I just really like using pen trays. They're just so easy to kind of store your pen. It's even it's taking that one step away from even opening the pen case, right? You just can kind of grab it. They're not going to roll off the table, and I just kind of have my pens ready. So now I'm really getting into pen trays now. I think that's
stop your pen from cracking when it rolls onto the ground.
that's true too. So you should use a pen tray.
And then as we get to the end, one thing that you are excited to try out and use, for me, Shachihata has developed this marker thing. So you use this marker, it's invisible, and you paint over washi tape.
Empty washi tape.
Empty washi tape. Supposedly it doesn't work on other washi tapes, but I don't think it's true. So we'll find out. But it allows you then to use fountain pen inks on the washi tape. And supposedly it works very, very well.
It works very well.
So I do want to try this. And then obviously, I'm going to try it on things that are not empty washi tape to see.
I think they because we met them at Tips, and they gave us a free pen to try. And I think they said on MT, because MT has kind of this code, and is quite, from the beginning of MT till now, they always did the same type of tape. And sometimes other brand, they have this kind of plastic layer on it, more like shiny. So I think on this one, maybe they cannot, be sure that it will work very well.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out, or I'll find out.
I will test on other and I'll let you know.
Yeah, but that's the one for me. Jacob, you got anything you want to try?
So it's not any particular product I'm aware of, but I'll say more about sort of what my wishful thinking is. Sure. So with fountain pens, I feel like fountain pens are kind of solve the problem. I'm not walking around thinking I wish there was a fountain pen that had this feature or whatever, right? The fountain pens I use, they are kind of perfect. That is not the case. That is not the case with dip pens, because the way I see it, dip pens either hold a lot of ink, allowing you to write like a full page, or they are easy to clean. So at the one end of the spectrum, you have Pirate Iro Utsushi, and you have Midori's dip pen. They are super easy to clean. You just dip them and then you clean. But if you're lucky, you can write 2 words with them, right? They don't hold any ink at all. At the other end of the spectrum, you have these more intricate glass pens with many grooves, and you have Hokoro, you have Kakimori's steel nib. They are fun to write with. You can write a full page, but they can be a pain to thoroughly clean. As Khuê mentioned, you may have to use a toothbrush or whatever, right? I want a dip pen that is easy to clean and allow me to write a lot.
Okay. Glass pen makers, dip pen makers, take notes. Alesa?
I'm going to tag along on your thing that Shachihata put out, is they've got a thing now, and again, Khuê and I were both checking it out at Tips. But the really popular Noto ink cards where you just swab the ink across the top of it, and then a design comes out, and they've just kind of exploded. Every company has one now. But they've got a stamp pad that they're coming out with where you can just stamp something, and then it repels the ink, so you can make your own ink cards or whatever. And I think those will be super popular. You can just take maybe whatever kind of index cards or a piece of paper, take whatever stamp you want, stamp it, and then use that design and just run your ink across it with a brush or something, and you automatically have an ink card made for you. So I think that'll probably be pretty big, I'm thinking. And everybody's going to be coming out with that too.
All right. Khuê?
So you may all know that I'm into glass pen quite a lot, and for many years I'm running after this Paraglass guy to get a Ramune pen, and I start to get really, really, really not patient at all, because I'm losing so many times, so many hours of sleep to wait in line and to not get that pen. And one of my friend Esther, who is a partner in crime in all these waiting lines, we start to get like, okay, let's forget about it and give our money to someone else to make other pens where you don't get caught a cold because you spend like 5 hours in the cold at 6 a.m. in the morning. So first of all, I want to shout out to Shoko Yamazaki, who make a very, very nice glass pen. We cannot find her pen that easily, and when they are like in pop-up store like in Kobeha or Itoya, they are sold out like in one day. If you miss the Twitter or the X advertisement or something, when you come there, there's no pen left. But I got some this year after years of like running after her. I got some of her pen, and they are really beautiful, very like affordable in the kind of like middle. They start at around 10,000 yen. Like not the cheapest one, but not the most expensive one either. So a good in between, and a very delicate pen. And Esther, who has Vandalus, has just designed this bubble tea glass pen.
That one is really nice.
That I didn't see yet. I didn't have it in my hand yet, but it seems so funny with the bubble, like the black tapioca balls in glass who are moving and making noise inside the fake milk tea. So it's one of the glass pen I'm looking forward to see in my hand and test. And yeah, that's my take.
Right. And then last thing, unless you want to talk about product development, is what kind of trends are you expecting for 2024? I mean, y'all are just acting so surprised. I ask this question every year.
Yeah, no, I know.
So maybe I'll start. I think that differentiation is gonna be a pretty key factor. I think there are so many pens out there now. Like, if we take a look at the U.S. market, for example, right? Like everybody and their mothers are making fountain pens in their garages, right? So you need some kind of differentiating factor. In Japan, I think, you've got so many new releases, so many retailers now. Unless you're kind of one of the older established retailers who've got like a really strong story, I think it's harder and harder for domestic Japanese people to justify at those prices that the pens cost. So in order to be successful at this kind of new price point, you really need to differentiate your product offering. Might be your service, or might be your story, or whatever it is. I think that's going to be key. I think readjusting your pricing strategy and looking at how you want to, again, as I said briefly in the beginning, segment your audience in terms of domestic audience or overseas audience. And even overseas, there's many countries, right? So maybe Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, they have different buying tastes. So how are you going to create, who are you going to create for? I don't think you can create pens that are for everybody. You have to have a kind of target in mind and create for those people, and accept that you can't just grab everybody anymore. You have to be more specific, and then you have to tell a story about that brand. You have to grab their attentions by infusing meaning into product. So maybe it's something that you buy because you want to commemorate an experience or a trip or whatever it is. But I think the standard kind of like black and gold pens probably not gonna cut it anymore, except for these graduation gifts. Even on the lower end, I think you need to have some kind of storytelling. I think Sailor is actually, we've been bashing Sailor for the entire year, but I think they're actually quite good at that, right? With the fishing, the water release that they had a couple years ago. That was kind of fun, whimsical. I hope we see more of that kind of stuff. Oh, and I also think that the yen is going to strengthen.
In June, right?
I have confidence that the yen will recover to at least 130 by the end of the year. Jacob, what does your insider information tell us?
If I had inside information, I would be very quiet in this meeting. Trust me. I would say Pilot won't do anything worth talking about next year. Sailor will have to tighten the purse because they are in trouble, and Platinum is going to eat Sailor's lunch.
Okay. One thing we didn't mention, which I think Pilot is like one the most conservative of the big three, right? But they released the Pilot 743 Verdigris in the US this year in green. So even though they've always had an overseas presence, this could be a first marker that they're turning their heads a little bit.
How did it do?
I think it did very
I
well.
was just curious.
Yeah, but I think the issue is that, well, from our perspective, is that the fine writing part of their business is so small that they don't feel any urgency to do anything, right? And I'm sure they're doing very well with the gift market, with the Namikis and so on. So it's more of a whim from what they want to do. While for Platinum and Sailor, it's life or death of the business.
This isn't a company thing. I think we're going to see more integration of fountain pens and ink. We've kind of like really stretched all the borders on ink, and I don't know about fountain pens yet, but we definitely have fountain pens made of every conceivable material, it seems like. And I think the stretching is going to be more like in the uses of fountain pen and fountain pen inks. You're going to see more artists maybe using like fountain pen ink with a brush and not even bothering with a fountain pen, or you're going to see people that paint and use a fountain pen for fine etching around the sides or whatever. That has really interested me, just how creative people are with both fountain pens and fountain pen ink, and I really welcome that. Maybe even into stationery. I'd like to see more stationery people when they do their journals, maybe just a little bit in a fountain pen because they just enjoy the way it writes. You may do your whole bullet journal in a ballpoint pen or whatever and just have a couple of lines in a fountain pen because it's cool, it writes a little different, you might get a different kind of, like all the different things we talk about, the different nib grinds and stuff. So I would like to see more integration, and I think we will see more integration of fountain pen and accessories throughout.
I won't expect something from a particular brand, but I will be really curious to discover, because a lot of settled brand like Shachihata struggle right now that people use less hanko, and so I think they get really innovative when they struggle, like with this pen, transparent pen on empty tape. And I'm thinking that Kakimori, who is a very well-known stationery shop in Tokyo, has released this whole office stationery goodies new brand. What's the name? I forgot.
Objects.
Index something.
Index, yeah. Object Index.
And in this series of artifact, they had this very funny tape dispenser where you can already have the tape made the tag for you. Do you understand what I mean? We will link one of the videos. So instead of just pulling a piece of tape, you have this small piece who will fold your tape and then you pull it, so you will make tag exactly the same size every time you pull. So I will look in this kind of creative, ingenious, stationery makers, and I'm looking forward to see more inventive creation like this.
All right. I think you have more high end and low end, maybe hollowing out a little bit in the middle. But yeah, I think all very good predictions.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be another busy year for us, right? 2024. In terms of the podcast schedule, will probably be just as unpredictable as this year. So, for the listeners, you can expect a podcast whenever we feel like it. There will be no set schedule, but don't unsubscribe from us yet. Eventually, we will make it back into your ears, into your feeds. So stay tuned. But I think for the next year we won't have a set schedule. I think it's going to be very hectic for everybody. Any last words?
Well, I'm not going to be part of this because I'm moving, but I think you guys really, even you doing your podcasts and intermittently and sporadically, each one's juicy and each one's got a lot of good information in it. And I don't think people are going to be unsubscribing. I think it's just going to be like a bonus or a candy bar out there or something, so you can tell I'm dieting. But so I stay tuned. It's cool stuff.
I guess every time we are participating as guests and we announce it beforehand on Instagram, I always got like bunch of messages like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear so long and so happy to see that you guys are still doing it." So I guess for most of the followers, it's like following friends from afar and be happy to meet them once in a while and getting news from the other side of the world, and that's a good thing. So just keep it up whenever you can, and we'll be around.
All right.
Yeah, I think if people are okay with mixing up, fountain pen news talk with just general chatter about, life in Japan, I think we can do more and more of that. I think that personally is a very interesting topic because I think there's a lot to be said about that, and we have a unique perspective having been here a long time, and we can always put a stationary spin on it, of course, but if people are interested in that, then I think we can do something about it.
I feel like you're opening a very dangerous floodgate. But I guess stay tuned for what we have in store next, and have a great 2024. My name is CY. You can find me on my website for now, at tokyostationpens.com. It will probably be deactivated in a couple of months, or you can find me on Instagram at Tokyo Station Pens, and that will not be deactivated.
And my name is Jacob. I'm Food Fan on Instagram and Threads and whatever else.
And my name is Khuê. I'm Cat on Instagram, and see you soon. Thank you guys for having us.
Alesa, Inky Rocks, and all the social media.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.